Welcome to the China Influencer Marketing Podcast. Each week, we speak with top influencers, marketers, and brands who share their experiences, strategies, and tactics for influencer marketing in China. Here's your host, Lauren Hallanan.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 18 of the China Influencer Marketing Podcast. This episode is a must-listen for anyone interested in China's hottest new app, Douyin. If you haven't heard of it yet, Douyin is a Chinese app very similar to Musical.ly, which is popular here in the US and other Western countries. And Douyin is currently disrupting the China social media industry. So much so that top platforms including Weibo and Meipai have been scrambling to retain users by integrating Douyin-like features into their platforms. My guest today is Fabian Bern, founder of Uplab Asia and an expert on the Douyin app. We cover so much in this interview, I can't wait for you to hear it. Some of the topics we discuss include: why has Douyin exploded in popularity? How Douyin hand-selected and trained their initial batch of top talent, Douyin influencers, the app's user demographics, how to run marketing campaigns on Douyin, and why brands should start experimenting with Douyin ASAP. And we discuss much, much more. I learned a lot from this conversation, and I know you will too. Before we start, I just want to take a quick moment to thank our sponsor, Parkloo. Parkloo is China's premier influencer marketing platform. Learn more at parkloo.com. And now, on to our interview with Fabian. Hi, Fabian. Welcome to the China Influencer Marketing Podcast. I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So I'm really excited to have you today because I think you are an expert on a topic that is really hot in China right now, which is the Douyin app. I think that this app has become really popular over the last year or so, and I think we hear a lot about it, but people don't actually know too much about the app. So I'm really excited to have you on. We've kind of mentioned it in some of the episodes before, but we've never really done a deep dive into it. So and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about it. But before we get into that, I was wondering if you could just kind of introduce yourself and, how you ended up in China. What are you doing? How did you get into, how did you become a Douyin expert? Just share a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Fabian. I'm currently living in Shenzhen, China, where I run a growth marketing agency, which is more focusing on data-driven. So we care a lot about ROI, value, conversion rate, etc., where we basically help foreign companies get into China. For the last couple of years, I'm actually based in Asia. I used to live for a year in Singapore, a couple of months across countries in Southeast Asia. And I basically got familiar in Singapore with the Chinese market when I used to work in a corporate real estate did marketing for the Chinese market. And I got super interested in what actually is going on there and how fast everything is developing. I'm in marketing already for over 5 years, mainly marketing technology. What I did in Europe, but also in Southeast Asia, where I helped companies basically scale up. But China was a total different market, and it was super interesting. So I basically quit my job in Singapore, and I moved to China to start up this agency and basically help foreign companies get into China. So it basically went from there. Actually, I have a girlfriend from China who is one of the influencers at Douyin. So I got familiar with Douyin, saw a very big opportunity because of the way how it was scaling. That's basically how I ended up in Shenzhen running a growth marketing agency and actually doing very well currently.
Awesome. What kind of companies are you guys working with? Is it mostly SMEs, or what kind of industries? Who are your clients?
So we prefer to work with product companies, I would say. We work with also service companies, but now our preference goes to product companies because we see it's easier to scale up and be successful in China, where our preference is actually in F&B, fashion and beauty. Because definitely in all these social media and the content which is going more viral now, you see the consumer behavior of the younger Chinese who are traveling abroad for particular products. So this is our preference because we know we can give ROI to foreign companies in that.
Okay, yeah, I think that's smart that you're sticking with what you know that you can deliver results with, and not just taking any client that comes your way. I think sometimes it's easy for like newer companies to just be, wanting anything and everything that comes through their door. But I think that's much smarter to stick with what you know that you can bring results for.
Yeah, correct. This is also what we tried in the beginning. I would say okay, we're talking a lot with companies. What we actually see, what do they want, and what do they want to achieve in China. And yeah, first we tried in the beginning to offer a lot of different things like setting up a WeChat account, doing management, a bit of influencer marketing. But now we're really heading more to strategic content marketing and influencer marketing. And we're actually outsourcing for us, a bit the basic stuff like create a WeChat account, set up the whole page, set up a WeChat store. This is not so much interesting for us anymore. And we're really going more into the marketing and the strategies and the metrics behind it.
Okay, gotcha. So, it seems that you are, from what I've seen, because I follow you on LinkedIn and we've chatted before, it seems like one of the platforms that your company is really focused on is Douyin. So why is that? Like, what do you think? Why do you think that Douyin is a really good choice for companies to be using?
Yeah. So what I mentioned before, my girlfriend is an influencer, one of the first influencers at Douyin. So I got very familiar with the app. And after doing some research, I found out that Douyin is actually owned by one of the biggest tech giants in China, like Toutiao. So what for me actually meant this company has a lot of money. And the moment you have money in China, you're almost sure the app or the product or the company will scale up very quickly. So what we did actually was directly from the start, we learned a lot from Douyin. We spoke with people who work at Douyin. We spoke with a lot of influencers, and we saw basically every single week the app developing with new features, new influencers coming up, the way how the app is used, etc. So we saw there a big opportunity also for companies, for Chinese companies, but also Western companies, to basically use this platform. Definitely because Douyin, I would say, is a more niche app. Like you have Weibo and WeChat, but everyone in China is basically on Weibo and WeChat. Where Douyin is a very niche audience, I would say, where I think Toutiao did this on purpose to really target on a particular niche audience to, basically earn more revenue to collaborate with certain brands, etc. So we saw a lot of opportunity there, and that's why we basically choose to offer Douyin as a service. Also because a lot of our competitors are not that fast, I would say, because we're working also directly with a lot of influencers because we know them personally and we're having drinks with them or dinner.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I mean, I think it's you're probably one of the only companies that's able to specialize on Douyin. Right now, there's a lot of companies that can kind of do a little bit of everything, but they might not have as many connections and as much knowledge about Douyin as you guys do. So I kind of want to go back and do you mind just kind of introducing for people that don't know, what is Douyin? Like what is this app all about? How is it different than Weibo, WeChat, all the other apps that are out there?
Sure. So Douyin is basically a video app, and the last years, I think in China there are tons and tons of video apps which came out. Where I think so, Douyin to get back, like Douyin basically means do is shaking in Chinese and in is music. And Douyin, the idea is basically copied from Musical.ly, which is very successful in the US, which is actually currently owned by the same company in China. So it really started out with there. So it's basically short videos, vertical videos, 15 to 60 seconds, where users are basically doing a lip sync where they can record a video, which is synced with music, and do a lip sync. And it started really out with a particular skill set, like what you see at Musical.ly. And now it's actually more heading to a kind of Vine-ish app where you have entertaining content, 50 to 60 seconds. So that's basically Douyin. It's a really simple app. The user experience is extremely good compared with a lot of other apps in China. Very easy to use and very addictive. So yeah, that's basically Douyin, I would say.
Okay, so you said, I kind of noticed this too, but I feel like the content is starting to change a little bit. And you said it's becoming a little bit more Vine-like. Could you explain that?
So yeah, because Douyin scaled up very, very, very quickly, definitely in the last 6 months. I think they're now over 100 million users, where 6 months ago, I think they were at 15, something like that. So it scaled up very quick. And because Douyin started as a kind of Musical.ly app, the influencers there needed a particular skill set to stand out. But because the app grew so fast and it adopted a lot of users, people started creating their own content. And because not everyone has this particular skill set, people started creating more entertaining content, which people just like. And I think Douyin also did this on purpose and very strategically, I would say. So you see a very big change in the app now the last couple of months because it grew so fast and more into an entertaining app, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've noticed that there's less lip syncing content, less like music related content, and a lot more skits, which I think I do think is smart, because I think that gives a lot more opportunities for more creative types of content, and also I think there's more opportunities for brands too. There's only so much that you can do with lip syncing.
Yeah, correct. It makes it more interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Why do you think that Douyin has become so popular so quickly in China? I mean, it's really blown up. It hasn't even been a year, I think, since it really came out, or started to become popular. So why do you think this has happened?
So, for my bit insider news, right, with working with a lot of influencers, Douyin started in mid 2016. Started basically the app, and what they did is they started very smart. They hired quite some, I would say around 50. I'm not exactly sure, but from what I know, around 50 Chinese influencers or people who were quite good at Musical.ly, I would say, but influencers from live apps in other apps in China, or Chinese who were active on Musical.ly. And they basically hire them, they contract them, and they pay them around 600 RMB for one video. And that time, videos were only 15 seconds. They paid them 600 RMB to make one video. They signed a contract that they were not allowed to go into any other app. So they cannot use any other video app out there. So they cannot use Musical.ly or any other app in China. So that's, I think, why they grew so fast. And what they did, they chose basically the people, these influencers, they were from first and second tier cities. They had an upper class income, under 24 years old. And so this is the kind of audience where a lot of people in China look up to. So they want to see them, they want to follow them, they want to see how they live their life, right? So this is like Chinese who live abroad, or Chinese who are from first and second tier cities who are living an upper class lifestyle. A lot of people wanted to see that. A lot of people wanted to follow that. And because these people, these KOLs, were not allowed to use any other app in that time, it became very popular because you build up a niche audience. And besides that, Douyin just had a lot of money because it was owned by Toutiao, which is super important in China. They did a lot of offline marketing. So even from the start, already in mid 2016, they did offline marketing in cinemas. They had like mini KTV rooms in malls, which were totally branded under Douyin. So they advertised everywhere offline. So they were basically everywhere in China, in all the first and second tier cities. And then they had all these influencers contracted, which they basically helped with boosting content. So there were a particular amount of influencers active there, which the moment a new user came into the app, always followed this particular influencers because they were the only ones there, because they were supported by Douyin. So this, I would say, how they became very popular. And because they got more and more and more users, the Douyin itself got more and more influencers, which they paid per video to stay in the app. And this is how they scaled up very quickly.
Wow, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, it definitely makes a lot more sense now. I mean, I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed by those original, talent that decided to because I think that if they had to risk a lot by kind of choosing to go with Douyin. I mean, obviously that's a great deal, getting paid, 600 RMB and, being one of these exclusive early influencers, but that's also a big risk because you never know if an app's going to take off or not. And they're it sounds like they had to, forego their followings on other apps, to do this. So I'm kind of impressed by them. That was a lucky gamble.
Yeah, so I think they did it. They knew what they were doing. So they choose a lot of influencers in China which were smaller, where they saw potential. What they did, Douyin has like 3 employees contracted under Douyin, like who are working full time for Douyin, who are an influencer themselves on the platform. So the other influencers can relate to them. And what I mentioned before, like these influencers are from first and second tier cities, upper class income, and under 24 years old. What basically means this is a target audience who just finished their studies and has to go for a job, but probably cannot find immediately a job. So Douyin directly can get them in and say, hey, we can help you to grow as an influencer. So they did it very tactically because these KOLs are not super mature, I would say. You cannot compare them with some influencers on Meipai or on Weibo or on WeChat. Douyin is like immature influencers, and they're still immature. So they don't know how to build up very well their own brand, to work with other brands because they're still super young. So I think Douyin did this very, strategically, I would say. They knew what they were doing. A very smart team behind it, I guess. And when you have a lot of money, it will take off in China very, very fast if you have a great foundation, I guess.
Yeah, that's all super interesting. And it definitely sounds a bit similar to my experience with live streaming, because I used to be a live streamer, and a lot of the people that recruit live streamers are also big streamers on the app themselves, and then they kind of have people underneath them that they're training. As a streamer, it kind of gives them, like, if I'm working with this agent, as we would call them, like, it gives them more credibility because they're the things the tips that they're giving you and the things that they're suggesting that you do to make your stream have better results, like they've actually tried out themselves. And so I like what you were saying, that they have employees at Douyin that are also influencers. I think that's really smart, just because then, like you said, people kind of trust their suggestions more, because they know that they've done it themselves.
Correct.
So because they had this original 50 or so, influencers, are they still kind of taking on, like, recruiting new people now? Or is it mostly just, people are joining the app and then, growing audiences themselves and becoming big influencers? Or is it still pretty much like these original ones are kind of the biggest influencers on the app?
Yeah, so what they did, I think, a couple of recruitment sessions. So really at the start, they had like a core team where they actually shared a lot of information with. This is actually also how the where the name Douyin came from, because they asked for input from the influencers itself. Because first it called A.me, so it had a different name at the start, but they found out that an English name not really suited in China, and they really wanted to focus on the Chinese market. As you probably know, Douyin overseas, which is now quite popular actually in Japan, Thailand, and Indonesia also, is called TikTok. So it has a total different name, and the app is also different. So you see Douyin at this moment really targets on the Chinese market still, even with a lot of influencers. The majority of the influencers is still there. Last month they did a recruitment session again, so they onboarded a lot of new influencers which they contracted, but they made the contractors more tough for a lot of influencers. So where it was first like, okay, you have to post 4 times a month, and you get this amount of money. Now it's scaled up to like you have to post at least 10 or 12 times per month, and the amount of money you get per video also decreased, because there are a lot of new influencers, and I think they're now with over 250 people, which are contracted under Douyin, and basically earning money from Douyin. So yeah, it's scaling up very quick, and I think they do once in a while. They do sessions and they talk with every single influencer. They also take very good care of them. So with Chinese New Year, they send presents. Basically every month they send different presents to the home of the influencers. So they're very engaging, I would say. So yeah, you see the KOLs are growing. So yeah, the KOLs are growing. Some people pop out, some people are not continuing. But because what we heard from the influencers is because they just pay well and they treat the influencers well. That's why they stay there and are not going to any competitors at this moment.
Gotcha. Do you think that people can grow a large following on the app without being one of these contracted influencers, or is it kind of necessary to be working with Douyin in order to get like a really large following?
So yeah, you definitely don't have to be contracted under Douyin and to get a large following. You see now a lot of people are actually scaling up super quick without even being contracted under Douyin. What you see now, you still can grow big if you have a specific skill set. Lip syncing is still there. Still people follow it because they think it's interesting. So basically what you have in Musical.ly, the kind of smooth videos and the transition. But you see now the app content changed a bit and it's going really on entertaining content. And you see that the Chinese are really looking for limits, right? So they really look for the limits as far as they can go to grow their audience. But it's really entertaining content. And I think the Chinese really, really enjoy that. There was one example of a guy who went in 1 month from 15,000 followers to 1 million, just with a couple of videos. So and this is not like supported by Douyin or something like that. It's really the pieces of content he's creating. A lot of people just enjoy it. And you see now also that Douyin has a lot of new features. So there's like a store and they have like live stream in it. So you see there are different ways to grow your business, to grow your account, what doesn't have to be only this pieces of entertaining content of 15 seconds, but you can also start out with live streaming, for example.
I did not know that they had added live streaming. Was that pretty recent?
No, they did it, I think, already like 4 months ago. So basically when you're in your home screen, you swipe up, then you see the live streams from the people you follow.
Oh, okay. So if you don't follow somebody, there's no way to, I guess I just never.
Correct. And yeah.
Oh, interesting.
That's interesting.
So they kind of.
So this is what they do, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hidden. Yeah. It's not like a obvious, like a live stream section or something.
No, it's not really a live stream section. It's really kind of hidden. So I think this is what they do to try things out a lot. So they have a lot of features in the app which are very hidden, and you have to know that. Some are only accessible for influencers themselves. But for example, the live stream is then not available for foreigners and only for Chinese citizens, because I think with the law now, which changed recently again, so only Chinese can do live streaming. So yeah, there are different, and then you have different regulations what you can do during the live stream and not, and otherwise directly your account get blocked. So, but you see, there are different features. Like every single week, there are new features out there. You see also other apps are copying Douyin a lot. For example, what Weibo did recently, they basically launched a kind of copy the stories thing of Douyin, which looks exactly the same as Douyin has. And this is like in a week or so, they copy it. And then Weibo has it. So now you see, for example, Douyin is changing also contracts with the KOLs, like you're not allowed to use Weibo stories anymore. Because they directly copied it.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I've
seen these features are rolling out like every other week.
Yeah, I've seen a lot. Something because I am on MeiPi a lot, and MeiPi has been changing their features a lot over the past couple of months to be more like Douyin. And I think it's actually kind of frustrating a lot of the MeiPi influencers, because they're like, we're on MeiPi because we like MeiPi. Like if we want to go to Douyin, we'll go to Douyin. Like we can, like they're like, MeiPi should stay like MeiPi and Douyin should stay like Douyin. Like, I've heard a lot of backlash actually from a lot of MeiPi influencers who are feeling like frustrated because now MeiPi's, promoting like the Douyin like videos more than they're promoting other types of videos. So yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I guess some people like it, but it's just kind of funny that all these apps are kind of jumping on this vertical short video trend in China. They're all kind of becoming like each other.
Yeah, correct. And I think in China, it's like the one with the most money wins. And definitely if you can create a hype around it. So I think, yeah, Douyin is doing quite great and quite well. And you see a lot of Chinese, even bigger apps like Weibo and MeiPi are copying Douyin because they have like a proof of concept, I would say. You see the KOLs in Douyin are also now less satisfied, I would say, because it's scaled up so quick that the reach of the influencers is lower per influencer. So I think that you have this in every single app, like that there are complaints about certain things through influencers. But I think what Douyin did definitely in the last 6 months is super impressive. I get now actually calls from the US too, where they want me to consult about Douyin, how did this app scaled so fast, and companies from San Francisco are looking at it and they don't know what to do, and they say, how does Douyin do that, and how can we do that? So it's quite interesting that actually they are picking it up also in the Western world, this app. You see a lot now at 9gag and Unilet, actually the Douyin videos, this entertaining content. So you see Douyin is like going overseas, I would say, with their marketing, but it's still a very, very Chinese app.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting that other companies abroad are looking to learn from them. But I think that what they did and how they grew is I mean, there are some things to take away from it, but I think that it also has a lot to do with the China market and the environment in China.
Correct.
And now it's time for this week's Parklu Influencer Marketing Insights. The emergence of influencer-led creative studios is set to disrupt traditional ad agencies and production companies in 2018. Influencer-led creative studios are now directly competing with agencies for brands' content creation projects. But why are influencers launching creative studios? The main reasons are longevity and increased monetization opportunities. Maintaining a brand around one's personality is exhausting, and it also limits how much content they can produce or sponsorships they can accept. Creating an agency can bypass many of these limitations. In a typical brand influencer collaboration, brands already are asking influencers to create content. So why shouldn't influencers offer more? This is not only just a trend in China. Influencer-created agencies and production studios are popping up around the world. And the truth is, who really has more content creation expertise? Your typical 9-to-5 agency creator, or someone who's poured in their blood, sweat, and tears into creating content that impacts communities and builds massive audiences at scale? For more insights and to read this article from Park Lu, please visit us at chinainfluencermarketing.com/Park Lu. And please enjoy the rest of the podcast.
I was wondering, do you have any tips or tactics or things that you've seen that influencers on Douyin do to grow so quickly? Or is it just that they have good content? I mean, do you have any suggestions that for people that want to grow a following on Douyin?
Yeah, sure. So I think it's very important to think very well about the content you're posting and creating there, to really fit in within the app itself, within the environment. I will say it's very important also to see, okay, what is hot right now and what is very popular. So in Douyin, for example, they have hashtags, but they have also like songs which you can follow. And this is a very good thing in Douyin. The moment you follow a song, when you have a couple of influencers who are making a particular song and they do a particular dance on it, a lot of their fans will copy it. So this is one of the ways how you can basically join that momentum and that virality to get yourself more in the picture. Because if it's a good piece of content, people will see it, then there's a big chance that Douyin, based on their algorithms, also will boost you as a person itself. Again, very important, what is actually in every single app out there is engagement and interaction. So really start engaging, interacting with influencers, but also with your friends. Get in touch with them, do once in a while, for example, a live stream, post something on your stories there. I think it's different things, but learn very well from what's already out there. What are other people doing on Douyin, and how do you see yourself as a personal brand or as a person fit in with this kind of community, I would say. But the majority is really entertaining content and really heading to more like fine-ish videos, which are funny to see. But when I watch Douyin, I still use it daily myself, just before I'm going to sleep, because I think it's fun. But a lot of the entertaining content, I also don't understand myself. Like, I don't think it's entertaining, but the Chinese thing. So definitely as a foreigner, it's very difficult sometimes to succeed on these really Chinese apps, definitely if you don't speak Chinese. But yeah, I think if you learn very well from the content which is there, then you have a very big chance, definitely at this moment, to grow very fast at Douyin, because they're putting a lot of effort in new users.
Gotcha. Yeah, I completely agree that sometimes I watch it and I'm like, well, it's got a lot of likes and views, and I'm sure people think it's funny, but I don't really understand why it's funny. But I completely agree. It's like sometimes it's just a cultural thing, and we just don't get it. But So speaking of it, because this kind of makes me think of brands, and you've mentioned a little bit, brands wanting to work with the app and stuff like that. So do you think it's difficult for brands to run campaigns on Douyin because a lot of the content and the humor is so like local, especially for I'm thinking like international brands? Do you think that's hard for them sometimes to run a successful campaign on the app?
So when I speak with brands and I consult them also to use Douyin as a platform instead of, for example, WeChat advertisements, the most difficult part is basically understanding. They don't think it's good content just because they don't understand. Where I say the Chinese think it's good content. So you have to basically adapt to the other market, and step sometimes away from what you did in the previous 10 years, right? So But the most difficult thing, I think, still is for companies which are entering China and want to start with KOL marketing, is that they still don't have a very clear goal, like what do they want to achieve, and what is their customer journey. So what are basically the steps their target audience is making to, at the end of the day, achieve their goal. And that could be sales, that could be brand awareness or something like that. So I think the moment you have your goal clear, your customer journey clear, and you can let go and trust influencers that they know what kind of content to create, then definitely foreign companies can run a very, very, very successful campaign on Douyin. But the moment as a company you cannot do that, it's very tough. And I think what's very important is when you work with KOLs is that you don't only look at the followers, right? You still heard it a lot, like, I don't want to pay for them because the followers are all fake or something like that. So what we, for example, do with our agency is, okay, we include engagement rate, interaction rate, what is their reach, and if we worked already with this KOL before, we give to the company what is their conversion rate. So how much is this KOL able to sell? And then we give an example product which we sold in the past. So this is something we include for brands too, so they know what to expect instead of they pay for a number of for a KOL which have a number of followers and they don't have any understanding of what's happening there. Give them more insights, and basically as a company you should always ask these questions like, what is the engagement rate, interaction rate, what is the reach, and if you have, what is the conversion rate, and then you can try from there. So definitely Douyin is a very good platform for foreign brands. I would say especially for foreign brands, because 85% of the users is under 24 years old. The majority is still in upper class, heading now more to also middle class. But these people are able to spend. And definitely if you're a product company, which is in the beauty, in the fashion, or F&B industry, you can definitely succeed very, very well on Douyin. At least that's what we believe. And we saw also in the collaborations we did before.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think sometimes, like you said, it can be a little bit difficult for them to wrap their head around the content and understand that maybe you don't like the content, but Chinese people like the content. So,
right.
What kind of campaigns can brands run on Douyin? Like if they want to run a campaign, kind of what is the process? Do they have to create like this challenge? You know, because I know that's how Douyin works. There's like these hashtag challenges. So do they like have to create a challenge concept? Like how do they actually run some kind of campaign on the app?
So it really depends what your goal is, right, as a brand. So the different things you can do with Douyin, but I think also, what with Douyin is like you can do just a one-time post to see, hey, what is the response on it? I usually wouldn't recommend that, but that's one option. Then you can directly sell through Douyin. So Douyin has a connection with Taobao where influencers are able to sell directly products in a store where they can feature 3 products per video, which is very interesting. Like, for example, you're having your company sells a lipstick. You send them a couple of samples of a lipstick, and this lipstick is directly promoted in the video, and people can directly purchase it through Taobao. So that's another way you can go. Then you can create what you mentioned, the challenge, where you can basically trigger a viral campaign based on a particular song, which is very, very easy to copy for their fans. Where you have to use strategically KOLs from different sizes to basically build up a momentum and try to keep this momentum as long as possible to go viral. And you can do like a cross-channel campaign with, for example, Weibo and a WeChat. So a lot of these influencers are also active on, for example, WeChat, where they interact with their fans and really send them messages every single day, and fans are sending them messages like, hey, when do you do a live stream? I want to check out, and these kind of things. So yeah, there are different ways you can use Douyin as a platform. So you can also do, for example, work as an ambassador. So you take an influencer. We're currently running a campaign like that, where we take a couple of influencers who are an ambassador for your company, who are taking pictures for your company account, but also creating videos which you repost on your Weibo account, for example, or even on your own Douyin account as a company. And through Douyin, you can generate, like, you get reach, you can directly sell through Taobao, or you directly can forward them to your Weibo account, or you let them at your WeChat account, or let them go to your store. So I think there are different ways, and it's really important. Okay, what are your goals? What do you want to achieve? And then, for example, like a company as ours, we consult you. Okay, we think this is the best campaign for you. You can try it out for a month. You can see if you can work with a KOL. If you are if the expectations are aligned, and then you can go from there. So I think it's very important before you directly sign a contract with a KOL for 6 months. Try them out for the first couple of weeks or a month, where you pay them a bit of money, and then you say, okay, we want a long-term relationship with you, in a sense. So we try out for a couple of weeks, we pay you a bit of money, you create one video, we see what the response is, we see if we like to work together, and then we can go from there. I think this is very, very important. And this is also usually how we do it. Instead of we directly say, okay, you pay us for 6 months and we find a couple of KOLs for you. Just start low key, see if you like the collaboration, if you like what the KOL is creating, and then go from there and see, hey, let's do a viral campaign. Hey, I want to use you as an ambassador. Hey, can we use also your WeChat account or something like that?
Yeah, I think you said a couple of things that I really like. I like that you are also trying to develop these long-term relationships between the brand and the influencer, because I don't think enough brands think that way. And I completely agree with you. You know, if you find an influencer that you feel is a good match for your brand, then you really should sign one of these, like you said, a 6-month or a longer term contract, and be having them produce content on a regular basis for your brand, as opposed to these, like, you know, one-off deals that the brands seem to like doing with influencers. It's like, if you've gone through all that effort to develop a relationship and to find somebody that's a good fit, like, don't you want to keep them around instead of like hop to the next person, you know?
Yeah, correct.
And also, I was just wondering, for those like viral type campaigns where you want to get lots of different influencers to all be posting these similar videos and get their fans in it too and everything. For those type campaigns, how many influencers do you usually think a brand needs to work with in order to kind of create that tipping point and have it go viral?
So,
like on Douyin, I mean.
This is a very difficult answer. Yeah, this is a very difficult answer. I think it really depends on your product and how does your product fit with this particular KOL. How does your campaign look like? I think, what I always recommend is like start with like 3 for a viral campaign, but have a couple of KOLs in the back as a backup, who can basically back you up and make an extra video for that and interact with their fans, etc. So I would recommend always like, okay, do 3, 1 huge one and a couple of smaller ones, like one probably with like 1 to 3 million followers, and then 2 of like 250K. And then start it out, see what the response is, see if you can trigger virality. If not, you can push with smaller KOLs or maybe another big KOL. So I think it really depends on the product you have. If it's a product which fits within the audience of your KOL, I guess, how many KOLs you would need. Because the users grew very, very fast now with Douyin, and they have a lot of active users. I think it's more difficult now to trigger a viral campaign. I wouldn't say it's impossible, but you need to prepare it very, very well. And your goal as a company has to be very clear before you can do this. Like, your whole customer journey has to be clear. Otherwise, it's impossible to trigger a campaign. And it's very important with a KOL to create a win-win situation. So if a KOL works very hard to create a couple of pieces of content for you to really trigger this and interact with their fans, you have to give them something back. And this is not always money. This could be something else where they have very much interest in. So.
Gotcha. Okay. And so I do want to talk a bit. I know that I'm sure this totally depends on the campaign, the influencer, blah, blah, blah. But is running a campaign on Douyin expensive? Especially we're talking like in comparison to WeChat, Weibo, Meipai, some of these apps that have been around a bit longer. Are Douyin influencers like a little bit cheaper maybe than somebody on Weibo might be? And I think sometimes you have to, it's best for the brand to work also directly with the Douyin platform if they want to run like a bigger campaign. Does Douyin charge a lot for that? I mean, I don't know if you just have any general information, like as far as, pricing and costs, because Weibo is getting very expensive these days. So I'm just curious to hear about Douyin.
So, you can work as a brand directly with Douyin itself. What we see actually is very, very big companies. The companies which had very successful campaigns were Louis Vuitton, Audi, Pizza Hut, Samsung. If you feel as a company that you fit within these other companies, then I would recommend directly to work with Douyin, but you really have to pay a lot of money. Douyin charges a lot of money for these things, but they will definitely help you to get viral and that everyone in the whole app will know you. If you work directly with influencers, which is actually allowed, for influencers, even the influencers which are contracted under Douyin are allowed to work with other brands themselves. Actually, Douyin really wants that you do that, but Douyin still prefers when you mention it as an influencer that you work with this particular brand, because sometimes it happens that basically Douyin turn off your boost, and then your reach is extremely low if you see that you promoted it. So the majority of the influencers, when they work with other brands, they mention it just to Douyin, like, hey, I have a campaign coming up, and that's it. So they always are okay with that. If it's expensive compared with Weibo and WeChat, no, it's very cheap. This is because Douyin influencers or KOLs are more immature, I would say. They're very new to the KOL thing, the KOL being a KOL itself on the platform. They became a KOL actually since they are on Douyin. So I would say they're not expensive. It also depends, what do you consider expensive, right? I really believe in when you don't get enough ROI, so you don't reach your goal, then everything is expensive. If you spend more money at the end of the day than you actually make or you think that you should make. So I think you have to be always ROI minded. So always have this goal in mind. Okay, what do you want to achieve? Is it brand awareness? Is it sales? And then see, okay, how can I use this particular influencer, right? Some influencers are even open for value-based pricing. So, for example, per product they sell, they get a cut, right? Or there are even brands who are open to basically let the influencer create their own brand under their brand, so that the influencer has their own, let's say, lipstick brand, right? So, but compare if you like to run a campaign or for an ambassadorship, it's really important that as a company, you create a win-win situation. So you provide value to the company. So what we're currently doing for another brand, right? This is an F&B company who has products in stores in China. And what we do is, for example, okay, we work with this influencer to basically get a reach online. But what we do is, okay, we take a picture from them and their picture will come in the store for a particular campaign, which actually the influencer really enjoys, that they're also offline in F&B stores, that their face is there, etc. This way, we can negotiate a lot with the influencer. Then we say, okay, we can offer this, costs a bit of money. Would you like to do that? So at the end of the day, I think the way influencers are very flexible. as long as you provide value to them, and that doesn't have to be only financially, but also products, for example. So if it's expensive, in my opinion, I don't think so at all. I think for us, we as a company now working directly with a lot of influencers, or with the majority of the influencers on Douyin, we can negotiate a lot because we know them. I think when you come as a brand and you don't know this influencer themselves, and you contact them, they will charge you quite a bit more, I think. So it's really building a relationship with them as a company or through an agency like ours, to basically lower the price a lot. And this can be very, very cheap for a brand at the end of the day, if they really enjoy your brand too and your products.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think that's really smart what you're doing with kind of offering them some other, like you said, the poster in the store and things like that. Because especially if they're younger and they're kind of newer and still trying to grow their audience, that could be a really great way for them to get more exposure. And you are paying them too, so it's like a mix of both instead of because I mean, yeah, I don't like when brands are like, well, we'll just give you some exposure and you can do everything for free. But I like that you're offering, hey, we can give you a mix of exposure plus a fee, but the fee might be slightly lower, because I think that's a smart tactic.
Yeah, I think it's very important. So what we also do is we have just a fixed management fee, because I see some agencies out there who charge, for example, 10, 15% of working with the influencer to manage it. We don't believe in that, because then the influencer or the company never trusts you to negotiate for the price or for a win-win situation, etc. Because how higher the price, how more you earn as a company. So we just have a fixed fee of management, and that's it. So I think you have to be very transparent and clear if you work with an influencer, and then there's a lot possible, I would say.
Yeah, that's really smart too, because I know that there's a lot of agencies in China that tend to take a pretty big cut of the money that was supposed to go to the influencer. So I know a lot of influencers who don't like to work through agencies and would rather go directly to the brand, because they're afraid that the agency is gonna take a lot of their money from them, and they could have gotten a much better deal if they had just worked directly with the brand. So I think that's smart if you're looking to get influencers to trust you and want to work with you. So I know that you kind of mentioned fashion, F&B, beauty, like these kinds of brands are good for the platform. Do you think, I know that I believe like Audi and Michael Kors have run campaigns on the app, but do you think that with this type of content that this app is suitable for luxury brands, or do you think it's better for slightly lower level products? or do you think that it is possible for luxury brands to run a campaign on this app successfully?
I think it's definitely the right app for luxury brands. I think it's one of the best apps even out there in China at this moment, because of their target demographic and the target audience. So the majority of the users is really under 24. Majority is actually girls. I don't know how much percent, but I think 70+% is girl from first and second tier cities and are in upper class. And that's the majority of the users. So you see now also other platforms trying actually to do the same what Douyin does. And that's basically to build products which have a very niche audience, instead of just a copy of WeChat where everyone is on and the app is for everyone. Douyin is really just for this particular audience. What makes it very interesting for brands, and definitely for, I would say more fashion and beauty brands from overseas, which are slightly more expensive. The Chinese really enjoy foreign brands instead of Chinese brands, definitely in the beauty and fashion. So I think Douyin is at this moment the best app out there to be there as a fashion or beauty brand or health brand or lifestyle brand. To use Douyin as a platform to boost your sales or your brand awareness instead of any other app. That's at least where I believe in.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't heard too much about the demographics of the app. So I guess for some reason I had also had a misunderstanding that it was a little bit that there were more users from like second, third tier cities. I didn't realize that it was so much more this kind of user demographic that had all this disposable income and everything. I guess for some reason I just lumped it in there with like Kuaishou or something.
I think, of course, it's changing now, right? Because the users grow so fast. So I saw that there are recently over 100 million users now. So of course they go now more to a middle class. But I think there's still an opportunity. But if you want to make use of the opportunity as a brand and work with influencers and try it out and see if it's something for you, and definitely if you're new to China, then you should try it out basically now, before Douyin is becoming a huge platform and does basically everything what's related to video content. I think this is the moment to hop in. Maybe you're already a bit too late, but I think it's still okay to hop in as a brand and just try it out. Because if it gets so much new users, the whole demographic starts changing. So I know half a year ago, the majority of the users were from Guangdong. And now you see it changing and actually going throughout whole China, I would say, but still from the bigger cities. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think now it's a better time to get on and experiment with the app before it gets a little too pricey to experiment with it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I mean, I learned a ton about Douyin that I didn't know before. As I said, I think everyone's talking about this app, but there's not actually that much information out there about it. So I'm sure that people are going to find this super useful. If listeners want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
Cool. LinkedIn, I guess. I'm quite active on LinkedIn, where I post regularly on China marketing and Asia marketing and stuff. So LinkedIn, and otherwise just our website, I think, like Uplab Asia. And that's it.
Awesome. I will link to both of those in the show notes. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this.
No problem. Enjoy it too.
Hi, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Fabian. You can find links to all of his contact info in the show description or in the show notes on chinainfluencermarketing.com. Also, I asked Fabian to share with us a couple of his favorite Douyin influencers so that if you guys want to log on to the app and check them out, it'll help you get a better feel for some top influencers on the app and the type of content that they can produce. So I've included that in the show notes as well. Definitely check it out. And just a note, if you haven't yet downloaded the Douyin app, be careful when you download it that you download the Chinese version. If you download the international version, TikTok, the content will be completely different, and you won't be able to find those influencers. You won't see what, the average Chinese user sees. So be sure to download the Chinese version and check it out. If you liked this episode and you know somebody else who might like it too, don't forget to share it. Thanks, and talk to you next week.